Patience is a virtue, not just a Robin Hood character. Hello, and welcome to A Critical Dragon, where I talk about narrative in film, television, and in books. And today I want to talk about certain things that can negatively impact us as readers. And because it's the internet and because people always take this the wrong way, I am not saying that this applies to you. I am not saying that you must do these things. What I'm trying to accomplish with this and other videos I'm going to do on similar topics is discuss aspects of modern society, modern approaches to reading that can have a negative impact. Not that they do, but they can. And there's a difference. The other thing is, you're entitled to read however you want. I can't, and I don't have any authority over telling you how to read. I'm trying to express things that can have a negative impact in regards to our reading and developing as readers. So the one I want to talk about today is impatience. And the thing is, impatience is connected to a lot of the other things that I'm also going to discuss. There are so many of them that are overlapping, and many of the potential causes and many of the exacerbating factors are also linked. But I'm going to try and focus on impatience today. And one of the ways of thinking about this is there was a character in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory called Veruca Salt. Veruca Salt saw something, wanted something, had to have something. Inside all of us, there's a little Veruca Salt. Think of it as the angel and the devil on your shoulders. But we as readers have a little Veruca Salt. And when we are reading, we want to know what happens next. That's one of the defining things that goes across a lot of narrative. Not all, but a lot of narrative. This idea about wanting to find out what happens next, how characters are going to be affected, what is going on, all of these things. But in recent years, there has been a shortening of attention span. This could be a general trend, the way that reading trends change over time. Psychological realism wasn't always part of literature. Yes, there were some stories that had psychologically real characters, but it wasn't the norm. And then there was a sea change, and suddenly psychological realism became elevated in terms of the importance to narrative. A lot of earlier stories can be very plot focused, plot centric, narrative event driven, in which characters are functions of the plot, functions of the story. And yet that has changed over time, and we develop and have developed a taste for narratives that are more character focused. And it's not that events don't happen, but we see that it is the event being created organically from character needs, wants, and desires. This is the movement over time. But when we read, we have a contract. As an analogy, we have a contract with the author. The author has created a text. In this text, they are laying out a narrative. In this narrative, they are creating a world and a story and these characters, and they're going to give us the information that we need when they think that we need it. Now, no author can imagine every single person who is going to read their book. They can't, because they don't know who is going to read their book. They don't know when that person is going to read their book. And they don't know from what culture, society, or even time period that person is going to be from. All they can do is, in their imagination about this story, to say, I'm imagining an audience, and at this point in time, the only information the audience needs is this. And we as reader enter into this contract to go, right, okay, we're going to read this story as And I know it's not a popular way to think about things, as the author intended, because there is an intention to how stories are being told. But in the modern day, the little Veruca Salt on our shoulder is whispering in our ear and saying, but if you don't know this thing yet, you can just look it up. Because the modern day has allowed us to instantly access information. Reddit, wikis, fan sites, fan forums, anything that you can think of. If you don't know something in a text, there is always a temptation to just go online and look it up. Go back 40 years. That did not exist. And remember, trends take time to develop. Changes to styles take time to develop. Changes to how we approach take time to filter in. A lot of them are generational. But if we go back 40 years, we did not have the instantaneous ability to just look up information. Now, Ralph Bluetax actually pointed out something which I think is quite interesting given my background. But some of this has to do potentially with computer games and how, with a computer game, the mechanics of everything are explained up front. How you play is explained up front. The rules are explained up front. You know the stakes up front. It's all about being able to apply those. And there are huge numbers of narratives that utilize that technique. But the issue becomes our ability to defer when a need is made good on has changed. We are so used to everything being available when we want it, not necessarily when someone else thinks that we should have it, but when we want it. And the internet, modern society, is very much set up to reinforce that behavior. If you want something, you get something. Oh, you want to order a book? Go to this website and you can have next day delivery. We don't delay our gratification as much anymore because we have so many facilities available to us that allow instant gratification. And because of that, because of our society, our culture, our technology facilitating instant gratification or near instant gratification, that can erode our ability to wait. It can erode our patience. It can make us less patient. This, again, as I said at the beginning, it's not necessarily a bad thing. Because when you think of if you're reading a book and you're struggling, you're like, oh, I wish I knew what was going on. We can go to a fan site now and ask for help. We can go to a wiki and they can help us as a reader by supplying some information that we might have missed, that we might have misread, that we might have skipped over. And then we can go back to the book and we can feel much more confident in our ability to read because we now have better context. Fan sites, fan forums, fan communities, these can be enormously supportive areas where we can get together with people who have read the books, who enjoy the books, and we can swap theories and all of these sorts of things. It's an unprecedented level of interconnectivity with other fans. But with that comes the temptation to let other fans do the thinking for us. If we think about the number of times that we have logged into a fan forum or a subreddit of a particular book series that we are fans of, how many times do we see people asking for clarification where they say something along the lines of, I'm only in chapter 2, but I don't understand this. Can someone please explain it to me? But no spoilers. But you're in chapter 2, like read and find out. This stuff will be made clear. Like that is the basic understanding of narrative. Okay, you're in chapter 2, you're at the beginning, you don't know everything yet. There's no possible way for you to know everything yet. You will find this stuff out as you go along. And yet, it has become increasingly common for, well, I don't know this thing yet. So I'm going to go into this fan forum and get someone else to explain it to me. But I'm going to impose a condition on how they help me by saying they're not allowed to spoil the rest of the text for me. So instead of reading and finding out, which, let's face it, how many times have you seen that in a Discord? Raffle. I don't know what this thing is. Right? You don't know what this thing is yet. Read and find out. It will be explained. But I want to know about this thing. Right. Okay, that's a want. You don't need to know. You want to know. And some of our wants and desires will be met by a narrative, others will not. That's the way of things. And quite often, if we read through the whole text and we are still struggling, then these sites are absolutely amazing because we've read through the text and go, I still don't quite understand that thing. And we can then talk about the book that we have just experienced with people. But more and more, we are thinking of ourselves as individuals who have a desire for something and then expecting the narrative to cater to our individual whim. That because I want to know the thing now, that is being conflated with I need to know the thing now. My need is not being met. Therefore, either someone has to go out of their way to explain it to me, or the author isn't doing their job right. And if we had more patience, because we all know, like, this is one of those things that every single one of us knows. When one of these questions pops up in our head, we know if it is important information, it will get explained in some way. And yet there's this little Veruca Salt whispering in our ear saying, but I want it now. And encouraging us to demand these things. The reason this can be quite detrimental to the process, if we take the position, well, when the author thinks it is necessary for me to know, not just when I want to know, but when it is necessary, they are going to explain it. We can calmly accept the pace and speed of the story. Now, it doesn't mean that we have to like it. And at the end, we might say, oh, this would have been better if it was slightly earlier on, because this actually changes the interpretation of the scene. It's not dismissing those things, but we can calmly move through a text. But if we become frustrated that I am not getting this information right now and I need it now, why do you need it now? Well, this new fantasy concept was just referred to. Yes. And we're in chapter 4. There's like 32 chapters. It's likely to come up again. Can you work it out from context? No, it's a brand new concept. Okay, it's likely to come up in the next X number of chapters. It'll get explained. There will be some attempt to go through it if it is necessary. But I want to know. So yes, this is a standard narrative hook. Introduce things, breadcrumbs, to make us read more. But instead of seeing it that way, we now see these things as negatives, as frustrations of our desire. So instead of seeing them as breadcrumbs that are encouraging us to read more, we become frustrated, we become irritated, we become annoyed that our desires are not being met. And we turn to fan sites and wikis. And if we carry on doing this, not only is our ability to have patience, to see how things turn out before we render judgment, not only is that being hindered, it is encouraging us to have a very egocentric approach to the reading, because we don't think of ourselves as being part of an audience of readers. We think, but this isn't doing the thing that I want. And we place ourselves very central to how the narrative is performing. And again, it's very natural. The one thing that we know with absolute certainty is how we are feeling about a text. But the more we become annoyed at it, the more frustrating this is because our wants are not being met. That can actually have a very negative impact in the reading of the text. And the thing is, fan sites, wikis, these communities that we're all part of, they are amazing. They are brilliant. But once we start using them as our own personal search engine, as our own personal reading crutch, as our own personal additional brains, we're not thinking about the text anymore. We're not building up our ability to analyze. We're getting other people to do the work for us. We're getting other people to do the thinking for us. And if we don't exercise our ability, it can atrophy, it can reduce. And again, I'm a big fan of these communities. It is enormously gratifying to see all of these readers coming together from all over the world. It is brilliant. But if we start using them as a shortcut and we rely on them as a shortcut, we're not developing our own reading. We're not developing the ability to have patience, to see how things play out first, and then go back to the things that we don't understand. And again, you don't have to you don't have to do this. You don't have to believe anything that I say. But this is something that I have noticed frequently on subreddits that occasionally I drop into. If I go in, no matter which one I pick, I can scroll down through the first page of results, and there's almost always, I'm on chapter X and I don't understand. Someone explain this to me without spoilers. But you're right at the start of the book. What? And even if you're at the start of the book and you know that it's going to get explained later on, why are you insisting that people match your expectation for reading when you're not willing to do the reading? And I think part of it is we do encourage this behavior. We encourage this style of thinking because Farouk Assault is in our ear saying, you want this. That is the same as needing this. And you want it right now. So someone out there should explain it the way that you want. Farouk Assault is in our ear doing this. And having patience in today's world and society can be extraordinarily difficult. We are used to lots of telecommunications, lots of instant access to things, more access than we have ever had before. Instant gratification is the name of the game. And people cater to it. The more people cater to it, the less we are able to defer gratification, the less we are able to have patience. And so this is something that can possibly, potentially have a negative impact, despite the fact that all of these things are great. It encourages accessibility. It gives us a support network for reading. It puts us in touch with other fans and other readers so that we can encourage each other. These are all beneficial aspects of it. But the downside is it can impact our levels of patience. It can damage that. And reading, because it is so deeply personal, we have to be able to develop our own skills. And patience is one of them. So I hope people take this in the way that it is intended. This is not saying don't use fan forums, far from it. But it is trying to point out we have less and less patience in this world. All of us. Modern technology supports that and encourages that. But narratives are not necessarily written that way. They are not constructed that way. And the vast majority of the great literature that we love is written by an author with an understanding. I will give you what you need at the appropriate times. It may not always be what you want, but if you try sometimes, you just might find you get what you need, to quote the sage Mick Jagger. That's what I'm talking about. There are so many benefits to the communities that have built up online, but there are potential downsides to our individual reading. But anyway, I hope this has been of some interest. And I honestly did not mean to offend anyone, and I am sorry if I have offended you. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you for your continued support, and I will see you in the next one.